Peace, 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 and welcome to the Origins of Om podcast. I'm your host, Om Maya, and today we're going right into the principles of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Let's get into it. One of the things that stood out to me about the law of rhythm is how the pendulum swings from left to right. And what that looks like is controlling your actions. You have a choice with how you respond to things in life. A lot of times when I'm sharing stuff on my IG with people, I don't have an opinion per se. It's just information that I've read about over the years, or just been witnessing a lot of the things that are unfolding. And I share that. And sometimes they're, just spiritual. And a lot of times it's, stuff that's going on in the world. It's kind of a little bit of both, right? And when I do that, it's just to spark a little light in certain people, for them to just kind of go in and see, how is this really affecting me? Or is it, right? A lot of our actions, they start off premeditated. So you're thinking it before you actually do it. One of the things I like to give an example of is like when I'm sitting somewhere doing something, meditating, whatever, and my mind goes off into, oh, why don't you go do this? Instead of me getting up and just doing that, right? I'm mindful of the fact that I am the master of my mind, my body, and my spirit. And when my mind wants to have this dialogue and try to run things, I'll tell the mind, you can go ahead and do it if you want to, but I'm going to stay right here. And so the mind starts to get a little agitated. The mind is agitated because it's used to running the show. I mean, if you're not in control of your body and you're just allowing the days to pull you in any direction, and you don't have a sense of order in your chaos life, then you tend to just kind of go wherever the wind takes you. And in the beginning, when I was reading about the law of rhythm and how everything flows out and in, a lot of times the flow is smooth, it's conscious. We have to become more conscious of our actions, conscious not only of the breath, but conscious of how we move our body, especially as we get older, because, we can't move like we were when we were babies, because we've accumulated so much information from this realm that we have all types of stories locked into our bodies now. So when we move a certain way carelessly, you find yourself injuring your body in a certain way, or being that you've held on to so much in your hips as a woman, right? You tend to clutch up a lot down there. And just even the thought of survival mode, needing to have some form of validation from the world, or some validation from your opposite, or even having children. All these cause a form of trauma to the body. And if you don't nurture those things back to health, then you find yourself being very loose, very open and vulnerable to anything coming in. Your choice to participate or to stand firm is also in your emotions. One of the things I like to practice when I'm if I'm going, through social media or I'm looking at a movie or something, I try to control how my facial structure wants to frown upon certain things, or my mind wants to drift into a judgment, right? Because these things exist in me just like they exist in anyone else. The difference is I'm mindful of my projection, right? Because I do value keeping my life in balance and in harmony. So if I'm not in balance and in harmony, then I find myself in constant judgment, very fiery, very heated up, just irritated. And that's not natural, especially when I look at how my day started and how it's going. By the end of the night, I'm going back through and I'm meditating, visualizing how my day went, so that when I go into the astral realm, right? Because all this plays a part in being conscious in your entire existence, then I'm mindful of whatever messages are coming through, or how I participate in my astral dreams, in my astral realm dreams, right? And then by the morning time, knowing what went down previously in my time or my day, which was what you call yesterday, that following day, I'm back in the now. Now what? Now, how am I going to operate in this day? Am I going to feed more into social media? Am I going to keep entertaining myself? Or am I going to get present with my being, my breath, my body, the way my mind processes things? Am I interacting with my family? Am I tapped into what's going on around me? These are very important things when you're talking about the law of rhythm, keeping a certain rhythm so that your emotions are not all over the place, right? This is where self-mastery comes into play, because now you control your thoughts, and you know that your actions can occur without your participation, right? Physically. If you could get connected to your mind, it's like one of the things I did was become best friends with it. It was like, hey, listen, we work together, obviously, and I can't have you running the show. I usually call it, I usually, when I'm talking to some of my clients, I'll say, you're going to either let that roach of a mind run all over the place in your kitchen of thoughts and run the show and tell you what to do, or you're gonna dominate that mind and you're gonna tell it what to do. So then you're no longer living in these fears of, oh God, I hope I don't go back into depression, or I hope I don't go back into anxiety, which, if you remember talking about that, depression is thinking in the past. Anxiety is dwelling in the future. There is no past. There is no future. You have to keep teaching yourself that mentally so that you don't keep drifting. Drifting is an opportunity for the lower self, the enemy, the double, to come in and infiltrate your mind and put all types of pictures and thoughts in there to get your body to weaken, to get you sick, so that they can control that, right? So that now I'm in control of it. I could tell you what to do. Eat more, sleep more, go out and find somebody to make you feel good about yourself. And so you have no sense of mastery, no sense of control over your own life, which causes more illnesses in the body, right? And being mindful that, by nature, we're creatures of moods and feelings, right? We're creatures of emotions. And therefore, what is happening outside of you is designed to work against you. It's designed to work against your nature. Consider this realm, however you want to perceive it, as a video game. This is the intelligence aspect of the game, and I am the player, and everyone in my life is a part of the game. And some are just bots. A lot of them are bots. And some are here playing the game with me so that we can help each other, remind each other of why we're here and our purpose, and ascend together, right? You know, your job is not to just soak in your pity and soak in your aloneness either. The whole point of you going to being by yourself is just as much as when you were out there, you know, socializing with everybody and going out and connecting with so many people. There's that pendulum again. It's like you go from one extreme of life to another. Now you don't even want to be bothered with anybody. And the truth is that this is a natural feeling and a natural process. Yet don't get too comfortable, because this is the root of everyone's issue, is comfort. Everyone wants to be comfortable, but you got to remember, if you're comfortable, then you're really dropped in and locked into the body, and the body could take weight. That gravity takes weight over you. So then the mind and the spirit, right, are always in constant battle with each other, because the body wants to be comfortable and the mind is going to support that. And it's going to give things to the body in order for the body to feel fulfilled, or should I say full. That brings me to the law of compensation. The law of compensation is to counterbalance, right? The pendulum. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. And with compensation, there needs to be a counterbalance, right? So if, for example, witnessing living in Florida and growing my food there were times where it wouldn't rain for weeks and weeks. So I had to go out and I had to water my garden. But without that water, my food would be destroyed, right? Everything will burn up because the sun, too much of the sunlight, right? Too much of anything would cause a negative reaction. Just like if I am a millionaire and I have all this money, right? But I haven't really done any internal work in myself, then I'm going to go all reckless with my money. I'm going to eat it up. You know, I'm going to splurge it on things I don't need, right? And then let's look at those that are living, you know, in this lower poverty aspect of things, you know, splurging their money on food and entertainment and all this stuff, and not really looking at building a space for their future generations. No one's considering, okay, this is the game of life. How about I start looking into purchasing land? How do I go by doing that? Well, you can't go run to somebody all the time and ask these questions. Why don't you go look it up yourself? I think people have forgotten how to research these days, because now that you have a phone, everything's right there in front of you. And, you know, you could just kind of, you know, go on there and somebody will tell you something and you'll follow whatever they say. Not really taking it into consideration, studying it and learning it for yourself. School's out. Most people go to school to learn a skill so that they could work or do something and apply that for their life. But what if you taught yourself? Just imagine how much more confidence you'll have in teaching yourself, whether it's mentally or physically, right? Even in the emotional aspect of personal development or meditation, or just, you know, reading books that challenge your mind to lose itself. Because, you know, when you're reading, a lot of times you want something easy. You want something that you can understand. But I love reading a lot of books that are challenging, that make me stop and think, that make me go and Google and look up stuff to say, you know, what does this mean? What does that look like? How can I apply that in my body? How can I apply that in my mind? And so what happens is I start to evolve out of this comfort of being fed information that is familiar to me, and I challenge myself to learn something that gives me a headache, right? Because then there's change occurring. See, a lot of times we look at pain as something bad, but pain a lot of times is just the reminder of the pleasure that is waiting right around the corner for you. That discomfort in your body is a challenge for you to go into yourself and actually take that feeling and work with it, nurture it, pull it out of that state of being blocked or, being discomforting. And that, it really reminds me of like when I was practicing yoga, and I still practice. I practice, period. Like my body is strengthening so much more because I'm not in my excuses about, oh, just a little bit, a little bit. I had to really go back and remember what it felt like to just move without being in my head about it and judging what I'm feeling as far as, oh, this is a little too intense for me. Let me, and I'm not in pain or anything. I feel great. But what had to happen is I had to get uncomfortable again, right? And I find that people do things according to what makes them feel comfortable. And there's a sense of balance that needs to happen there, right? Like, if I'm not going through the suffering just off of, life's challenges that pull me into certain things because my thought process was at a low frequency and I channeled this reality, which we'll talk about when we go into cause and effect, then if I'm not going through the suffering naturally, right, just off of my, lower vibrational thought process, what happens is I find that I'm going to be challenged just off of the nature of how things move. So it's like that saying I posted the other day where it was like, you are creation and you are the creator, right? Look at what you've already started doing in your life. I mean, if it hasn't done it for you already, going through these last 2 years, you become more creative. You start to create more things in your life. You're starting to do music, or you're starting to do more art stuff. You're starting to take up more of a practice in your life to keep yourself active and, just balanced out emotionally. Majority of the people I know are starting to really pull away from people that no longer serve them. And, one of the biggest challenges that is happening right now, I mean, it's all playing at one time, right? So you got all this stuff coming out now, finally, that, has been going on in this realm that has been affecting us physically and emotionally, and also holding us back spiritually, where a lot of times people are not even thinking that the spirit aspect is really a big deal and it doesn't matter, but they don't realize that is literally how everything is functioning. Everything is designed to go against your spirit, man, to keep your higher self suppressed. Because if you don't realize that you are a child of God, that you are the child of the Mother, Father, and the Son, what happens is you are just walking around here thinking you're some insignificant entity that's a speck of everything else. And that is so maybe in the body aspect, but you are infinite in consciousness. You are infinite in your being. I'm going to leave that right where it's at. I've been doing some recording on this topic for the last couple of days, and it's a lot of construction going on. So if you hear whatever going down, listen, it's about the message. Practice tuning into the message. Also, when you're listening to certain people that might speak a spark of interest in your life, let's not look at the character that's been built. but let's look at more so the message behind it, right? Because a lot of times, we show up for people a certain way, especially me. I tell my children all the time, listen, I'm okay if I show up as a bad guy, to you, because, it's about balance in my life. And I really can care less if someone likes me or not. Why? Because I've practiced looking so-called bad for people so that we can get past this desire to mentally please each other. Oh, you make me feel so good. I notice social media has become such a narcissistic platform that I refuse to continue to perform to fit what the algorithm is, right? Do this for fun. I do this for fun. I do this because I care. And if I'm going to leave anything behind, it'll be my voice, because I know that Spirit has given me the tools to speak. And when I look at my parents growing up, my mother and my father were true evangelists. They went into people's homes and they, would pray over their families, and they would anoint their homes and cast out any, spirits that were in the home. They would really do the work. I watched them go and, do community service for the homeless. And back then there was no cell phones for that, and my father, just watching him, he didn't care about, getting attention from other people, even though, he had a desire to, be as great as a Benny Hinn. I loved that about him because I could feel the anointing power over him, as well as my mother, and how people just loved them for their genuine approach to the Word of God. And as I grow and I evolve, I see so much of my mother and my father in me that I no longer see them or my beloved stepfather as a form of enemy or attack. I see us all as one, learning together. The more you despise someone, whether it's your mother, your father, a friend or sister, the more you take on their pain bodies, because you're pretty much meditating on them and you're manifesting whatever it is that they are showing up as in your life, and you take on their pain and their suffering. So it's important to identify what is there, why it's there, and how you can overcome those traumas and those stories so that when you have children, that doesn't backfire on you, because what goes around comes around. And again, we're back to the principles of rhythm. Everything has its tides, right? All things rise and fall. Rhythm compensates. It's an honor and a pleasure speaking with you all today. Feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'd like to know how you're enjoying the podcast so far. I want to definitely get more listeners in. So share, spread it. Just throw it out there for anyone you feel might need to hear a message. It's going to sound different for everyone, right? And I'm not for everyone. And I'm okay with that, because that's life. But peace and love to you all. And until next time, later.